All right. Welcome back. This is the Ari and Syd show. I'm Ari.
And I'm Syd. We're forever friends, and this is the shit we care about.
Yeah, on any given day, we're texting back and forth, shooting the shit, talking about stuff that's important, talking about stuff that is sometimes not so important, and we're taking the opportunity to make a show and talk about it. Raise awareness, spend some time together.
Right. So, if you like what you hear, see, you agree with us, you don't agree with us, feel free to leave us a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like, share, and leave us a review if you're listening on Spotify. Now that that's done, get into some shit.
Yeah, we're on episode 4. I feel like we've been doing this forever now, but this is our 4th episode. So if you are a returning listener or watcher, welcome back. Today's episode is about managing stress and anxiety during COVID. The amazing topic of the year, I feel like.
A year. Seriously.
It's been crazy
Oh,
though.
do you know that duh, but like when we first had to start quarantining, like my child was 9 months old.
Mm.
She's almost a year and a half now.
I don't think anybody, and I mean, of course, this has always been talked about, I feel like, but I definitely, when we first started the pandemic, not even a pandemic, when we first started quarantine and working at home, I was just like, yeah, we'll be back in a month or so. You know what I mean? It's not going to
Hmm.
be that big of a deal. And then here we are. What? I've been on quarantine since March 16th.
Yeah, I've been here home since March 13th.
It blows my mind. I think that I was I was okay with working from home, even though I am not somebody that ever wanted to be one of those people that worked at home. I don't know why. It's just not, it wasn't my strength. I knew that if I work at home, I'm not going to get anything done. And so COVID happened, and I'm like, well, I can't really not do anything all day because now I had to run different kinds of things at work, and a lot of stuff was relying on me. So if I wasn't productive, then that shit just would not happen. And I don't know. I think I quickly adapted. I don't know. What about you? Did you adapt really quickly to quarantine and having to stay home all the time?
Um, yes and no, I feel like. Because when it happened, I was only like a few months into like being back like a working mom. Like I had like
Mm,
only been off of maternity leave for so long, right? So I was still like getting used to my schedule. And so that was, something, but it was also at a time where like I was really tired because I was getting used to my schedule. So I was happy for the
yeah.
opportunity to work from home actually. And I think like personally for me, even in like college, like I'm good at working in the bed, even
Mm.
like I can crank out like I don't know. I remember Tiara in grad school, she'd be like, I don't know how you do it. Like I wrote all my papers in bed, like I can work from bed. Now I don't do that as much. So like we set up our office because we're working from home, I do need to like make that difference of like work and then home.
Yeah.
But yeah, but of course it was definitely like a transition and like some adjustments to happen, especially because for Amina, like I was working, working from home is different. I was working from home when I was pregnant, but I didn't have a baby yet. So
Yeah.
working from home and, having a 1 year old walking around is a very special experience, I'll say.
Yeah, I'm sure there's never a dull moment or even like a resting moment. I feel like that's been the challenge for myself is I think that in the beginning, well, for me personally, my job was like busy. I was We canceled all of our shows And then on top of that, we started doing virtual programming. And so the month of April, I was doing an event every workday. So like I was the person streaming the event, I was the person producing the event, I was the person planning, doing rehearsals, doing all this stuff that I don't normally do. And so finding time to rest at random parts of the day was abnormal. Resting, I always worked through lunch, and I know we've talked about my terrible work life balance, but that is one of them. I don't like taking lunches. I like to just power through. But when you're working at home and you're working, and you don't never take a break, you look down and it's 6 o'clock.
That's
I'm like, holy
dangerous.
shit. So finding time to rest during this time when you're already at home. It's crazy. I feel bad for resting at home.
Yeah.
That's some shit.
Yeah. I feel that. Because it's like, again, like the lines are blurred, right? Because then you go through like, I don't know. Okay. Let's talk about what the topic's gonna be like, because I feel like this is gonna add perfectly into it, right? So today's topic, of course, is managing stress and anxiety during COVID or during quarantine. And so I think in the beginning, especially working from home, there was like this anxiety or stress of like making sure I was as productive as I was in the building now that I'm home, right? Now that like
Yeah.
my boss isn't across the hall and like, this is that. And so I think like when we start talking about stress and anxiety, that is like a big part of it. It's like productivity for your job and like proving you're productive, right? Like you don't have like a place where you go from this time to this time, so that like I'm at this place, I'm doing work. You're in the
Yeah.
same place basically all day, and then now it's your responsibility to cut up your time and create like environments that feel like you're at work.
Yeah. So, along the lines of anxiety and stress, how do you experience those things? Like physically, emotionally, where do you experience those things in your body?
Yeah, so I definitely experienced like physical, like I guess like manifestations of anxiety, right? Like I'll start to feel it, like my body will be tense. I my ears get really sensitive, so I'm getting real sensitive to noise. Like everything sounds loud because I'm also trying to juggle all the thoughts that are in my head. So like as I'm
Mhm.
trying to like think through all that, everything sounds loud. Sensitivity to light. Also like my like if I'm not wearing my glasses, that causes me to stress out even more because now I can't see properly, and so
Yeah.
that even heightens my anxiety. Like it took me a while to even realize that what was happening. Like I'd like be in this like anxious space and be like, what is wrong with me? And then like put on my glasses and be like, oh shit, that is so much better. I can literally
Yeah.
see clear and I can think clear. Um, and I think another way, or like another, I guess, way that I like can notice that I'm being anxious, or like I see that I'm becoming anxious, is when like I have like a really hard time making like eye contact with people, because again, like I'm trying to like think, and then
Yeah.
also my appetite gets terrible. Like
Mm.
I'll be hungry, but like I literally have no taste for anything. I can't. I'll try to like I'll take a bite or like try to eat something, and then like won't even finish it. And so I'll notice like at the end of the day, like wow, you ate 2 bites of everything, and like you've been in like an anxiety attack basically all day.
Wow. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think that for me, when it comes to anxiety, I wasn't aware that I was being anxious. Um, I think that I definitely have different tendencies, and as COVID has continued, of course, I've done the research and like, oh my gosh, is that what anxiety is? So I oftentimes get very irritable. I think I want things done when I want them done, and like done the way that I would want them. You know what I mean? I have all these things that I want to be able to control because I'm being anxious about all the things that I cannot control. And so I definitely get very irritable. Um and I wouldn't say like angry. I'm not like angry lashing out on people, but I definitely have a shorter patience when I am anxious. I also feel like I want to like sleep or lay down more. Like I just, and I think that that in itself, COVID, I literally binge watched so much TV, which before, like we would watch TV maybe for an hour or two a night, maybe, and before that, or before quarantine, that's what our routine was. So now it's definitely whenever I feel like it, because limiting that to an hour or so, it just makes me feel more anxious.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe I'll have to pay more attention to how like I physically respond um to anxiety and stress. I know when I'm stressed, I don't eat. Like literally, I'm definitely the same in that aspect of having a low amount of appetite. I get headaches, and I can never tell if I'm getting a headache, like a migraine, because of stress, or if it's because I'm not eating because of stress, It's just all intertwined together. And it's been something that I definitely say is always a work in progress. I think that when you're managing those kinds of things that are always changing, you know what I mean? You establish a coping mechanism and then some other shit comes up, and then you're like, oh my gosh, well, my coping mechanism isn't working. Then you got to establish a new one and not develop anxiety over your having to let go of your old one. It's just like this cycle, and finding a happy balance of like, okay, I'm just going to do a little bit of everything every day. So then I maintain at least a lower level of anxiety and stress. So I never reached my thresholds. And for me, I don't have a very good practice of doing that every day. It's been something that I don't know. I think I'm just unmotivated to develop those things because I'm like, how long am I going to be in this state? I feel like
Mhm.
you're told like, oh, you develop a coping mechanism for things. So then you get through your anxiety attack, or you get through, whatever. And I don't ever know anything like that's for chronic anxiety. It's like, maybe I'm just an anxious person all day, every day. How do I have a coping mechanism for that without rejecting who I am? You know what I mean? I don't know. That's one of those I feel like I never ever answer any of these questions directly because I just have all these thoughts, and maybe that's a result of my anxiety. Oh, so funny. So
So
have
you
you
mentioned,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. So, because you mentioned like limiting like your TV time and things like that, like noticing how that affects you. Have you since COVID or even before COVID been able to like identify what like your stress or anxiety triggers are? Like what gets you to that space other than TV, or like other than also like working from home, because we talked about that too.
So your question is, what makes me anxious?
Yeah, like what are your triggers for like stress and anxiety?
Um, Honestly, most of the time it's work. It's definitely work because I hate having to rely. I love working on teams, right? And I love working on my team, but working on teams that have to collaborate with other teams that don't work the same way as my team is probably the number one thing that has made me anxious, specifically in regards to COVID. Because before this, if somebody didn't do something that I needed, I would just find another way to get it done. You know what I mean? But now that we're all working from home and all reliant on each other, it's so new for me. I think that it drives me crazy because we have a very efficient way and like whatever is quickest to get it done. You know what I mean? And we still produce quality, but we've done it this way, and we're not stuck in doing it that way. But a lot of times the reason we do things is because we failed before. You know what I mean? So for me, I know social media specifically for us and how we do things, and so when I'm when I'm being told of what is the desire and the outcome, and I know that that's not going to be successful, it makes me like anxious because now I have to do something that I know I'm going to fail at. And we continue at my job to do these things that I know we're successful in a extent, like, oh, it's done. Like for me, there's a difference between having a task because there's a purpose to that task and having a task just to check it off. I don't find value in having things to do just to do them. That doesn't fulfill me at all. And so when we moved to online and doing all these virtual events and all this stuff, I think they're great. But personally, there's some things that I'm like, okay, this doesn't really need to get done. And I know we're doing them. I know they maybe touch some people, but sometimes it becomes mundane. Why are we doing this? Why are we putting in all this effort and, changing the way we're doing all these things just so that we can check it off and say that we did it? So those have been my biggest triggers for anxiety. It's usually cause for work because having to figure stuff out on the last minute dime. And I think also another thing that makes me anxious is making plans. So I like to make plans and leave them the way that they are. But I'm also one of those people like, okay, it needs to change. Okay, cool. But I don't like when plans change without me ever being a part of the conversation. That's when I'm like, well, wait, but we were going to do this way. We said this. And then you change it without me knowing. And now I don't know what I mean? I had prepared, like going to the movies before COVID is one of those things that I was like, I need a week's notice because outside of COVID, think going to the movies is gross. They don't clean the seats as often as they say they're going to clean them. You're in and out of a theater. You're right behind. I don't like sitting in seats that other people have been sitting in. It's just, all those things. So if we're going to go to the movies, I need to know well in advance so that I can mentally prepare for the things so I don't obsess over them. Because when I go places that, like last night, we went to go grab this cookie that I found this cookie shop. I was like, oh, let's go grab these cookies really quick and try them. And the woman had gloves on when we came in. And I couldn't remember if she touched my cookie with her bare glove or not. So then,
oh man,
we go and pay. The only reason why I was focusing on that is because we go to pay. She still has her gloves on. And she does everything. She takes our card, puts it in, blah, blah, blah. Then other people come in. So I'm like walking, but I'm like staring at her, like to see if she's going to change her gloves. She never changes her gloves. Like that defeats the purpose. We're in a pandemic, people. You should be changing your gloves. You shouldn't be holding on to gloves. You know what I mean? Like if you're wearing gloves and touching your phone, taking off your gloves and touching your phone, that defeats the purpose, people. So all those things make me anxious.
Did you eat your cookies?
I ate one. I couldn't.
I know that was hard for you. I know.
I couldn't eat the other. I got two, and Kendall's. He's like, I don't think it's that deep. It's always that deep. We're in a pandemic, anyways. And it's funny because I've gone places and like I'm like, okay, I'll go. But again, I'm constantly thinking, what are the extremes of this situation? Which is probably maybe I shouldn't go. But then I can't be a hermit. That's something that I've struggled with, having to stay at home. And then, we got COVID. So we stayed at home, didn't leave the house for like 24 days. We didn't kill each other. No, we love each other. You know what I mean? We barely even went outside with Glenn. We went on walks like probably twice during that time after we were at our sickest. So we waited like a week or two after we were at our sickest. And then we started taking Gwen for walks again. And that was hard. I was so sad. I think, I cry sometimes when I'm anxious, but I cry and never know why I'm crying. That's one of those things. Like, what is wrong? I don't know. I just can't identify the exact feeling. But have you noticed new things that make you anxious during this time?
um
Because I mentioned the glove thing. That's something that's new. Well, actually, I do pay attention to cleanliness quite often, probably more so than I should when I go to restaurants and things. So that's
mhm.
kind of new, but not really. But for you, what would be something new that makes you anxious?
So we've been staying inside like a lot, but for me, that's not like I don't mind being a hermit. Like as long as I can go outside and feel the sun every once in a while, like I'm gonna slide by myself back in the house and I'm gonna be good. But I think something that's made me more anxious is like honestly like the news and social media, right? Like I mentioned before, like my dad is very into politics. So like we've always had the news on in our house. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm very used to watching the news. I used to watch MSNBC in the mornings before going to class and stuff like that. So like
Mm-hmm.
now watching the news, like everything makes me anxious. And like getting new like CNN alerts and stuff like I have to turn those things off my phone because like every time I get like a CNN breaking news report, like I'm scared of answering it or opening it because I don't know if it's gonna talk about a pandemic or this like the election or like, the oil tanker that's like leaning, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know like if we're gonna be talking like in all of these like it's never in my head, like I can never expect anything good when it says breaking
Yeah.
news. Like I very much connected breaking news to like awful shit.
Yeah.
And so that has made me really, really anxious. And then just like thinking like about how I guess how like we're supposed to move forward and raise our kid, right? Like fortunately she's at a point where like it's not really hard to keep her busy. But at the same time, like we're worried about like is she going to be like afraid of people all the time because she's always around us, you know what I'm saying? Like um is she going to like how is she going to be socialized with other kids, like things like that. And so I think a lot about that, like am I doing enough to like be teaching her right now, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
she's only a year, feeling like almost what she'll be 16 months next week. And I understand that like she's not preschool age and she's not supposed to be like learning, but she was learning at daycare.
Yeah.
So like I want to make sure that like I'm doing things that like is keeping her engaged and keeping her development going and keeping her brain, growing. So like I'm super anxious about that. Like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? And then like I'll see other parents and like my kid is counting to this. And I'm like, Amina, why aren't you counting? Like, you know what I'm saying? So like that has been like the newest form of anxiety. And I think already like for pre-COVID, pre-quarantine, becoming a new parent, there was already some anxiety with that. But because now like my kid is really only getting everything from her parents at this moment, like it all really is on us right now. Like, we don't have her
Yeah.
teachers and her like the larger community to really help us hands on right now. So yeah, that's really been it. And I think for me, for like triggers, definitely like you mentioned like I don't know if one is affecting the other, like for skipping meals, like I know if I skip meals, I'll become more stressed. Like my body would be like, what are you doing? Because I'm chasing around a 1-year-old and working from home on eat, right? But then I'll get anxious thinking about eating because I
Mm-hmm.
know I don't have an appetite. So like it all just rolls and rolls. So stress, like a trigger for me is skipping meals, but that also the poor appetite is also like a manifestation. Like I'll skip a meal, but then like I will not be able to get my appetite back up to actually eat.
Yeah.
Um, and like the watching too much TV, definitely. Like I cannot be watching this much TV. Like outside of the news, even just like watching like, girlfriends and watch stuff on Netflix, like I have to be careful with watching how much I'm watching because then I'll start to like, internalize and think all these things and start to stress out and like become anxious about stuff that doesn't even actually exist. And it's so easy right now to like have like to come in contact with all these triggers because we are at home. I'm saying like it's easy to like sit in the office or sit on my laptop and work till 4 o'clock and be like, oh, like
Yeah.
I didn't eat, like I'm saying like, and it's also really easy to do that because when Amina eats, like when I cook for her, like I typically don't cook for myself, which is doesn't really make a lot of sense. But like so she has her meals, and then when she's done eating, like she's playing, and then I'm able to do some work. I don't think to eat in that time. So
Yeah.
like it's a lot. But I just realized that like I have to pay very close attention to like the things that I'm doing every day and like paying attention to how much I'm doing it. Like, weren't
Yeah.
you watching TV earlier? Maybe you should not go watch TV. You know, and things like that.
So have you learned any new coping skills during this time?
Uh, um I think so things that I was already doing before that are like things that I'm doing even more now is like sleeping. Yes, like I will sleep like, an anxious feeling off. I'm drinking a lot more tea, so I always have my cup. Um, I did start therapy with a new therapist, so like that's been super helpful because again, like I don't know, I know people have their feelings about therapy. I think therapy is great. I think counseling is amazing. I think therapy should be free for everybody, especially during this time. Because in my head, like I have someone that I can go and dump on. And like I don't have to be ready to receive back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't have to
Yeah.
think about, okay, like and after I dump on her, I have to be ready to help her with some shit. Like I just gotta tell her all the shit that's in my head, and then we get to talk for an hour or so about all that, like spotlight on me. And so that is extremely helpful, especially for someone who's like constantly in their head to like be able to like blurt out all this stuff and be like, does that not make sense? And then have like an
Mhm.
unbiased reaction or unbiased like response.
Yeah.
So that, and then also I think new ways that I've been coping is daily affirmations. Like affirmations have been big, right? But now like I've gotten to the point where like the only notifications on my phone are not connected to social media. They're like affirmation apps that like pop up and like pop up
Yeah.
on my watch and like give me a really good timely affirmation actually. And then also breathing. So like I have like a breathe app on my phone, on my watch that like every so often it'll just tell me to like take a minute to do this breathing exercise. And that has been like tremendously helpful. What
Dope.
about you?
Let's see. In the beginning of quarantine, I was doing my macrame, which I still kind of do. I finished one and I'll put it up for sale at some point here. I kind of write poetry, but I feel like I get to a point mentally and think, well, there's really nothing that hasn't been said. You know what I mean? So, like about COVID and about Black Lives Matter and all the shit that's going on in the world. I feel like mentally I can't put words together that haven't already been said, you know? Um but I still try. I write like sentences here and there. Um I'm the opposite, so I watch lots of TV. I got through Girlfriends. I'm watching New Girl right now.
That's your
Um
shit.
yeah, it is. I What is another thing I do? I don't know. This recording with you,
Yeah.
something, we weren't, and we mentioned this in the beginning of our first episode, but we weren't really talking on the phone. That was never part of our friendship. We didn't need to talk on the phone. We were always in a physical place, and even if not, when you moved, we just text, and we didn't even FaceTime when you moved. It's so weird, and it was
Yeah.
fine. It was actually kind of weird. Like if I FaceTimed you, it was like some real serious shit. You know what I mean? And now we get on here and talk, and it's great. So I get to have some Sydney time. Um, yeah. Obviously, I don't
You
have
know
very
what else
many.
though? No, but there was something else because and I think it's because we forget how long we've been in quarantine and like there's been like cycles, right? We were
Mm.
in a cycle where we were working out like every day.
Oh yeah,
We were working out like I mean it's been a couple weeks, but like we were doing really good with that and like keeping up with each other. Um, talking about that. We would work out together sometimes. We were doing yoga together sometimes. So
oh
we
yeah,
did add the like we did exercise at one point, and it was like I think even one day you like hit the group chat and you're like, oh, I had like a stressful day, but I just dumped all that into my workout.
yeah. You're right. You're right. I did work,
Yeah.
and I am gonna get back into working out again. Um, doing step Shout out to Extreme Hip Hop with Phil. That's my shit. If you want to do some exercising but don't want to work out for real, you want to do some dancing, I highly recommend doing his classes online. And I just found out that there's people in Arizona who are certified in his program, so they teach it in a studio. I'm not really ready to go to a studio and be around a bunch of people yet, but that's something that I definitely will consider in the future. We just bought an exercise bike, so now I'm gonna exercise while I watch TV or play video games. I think I started doing video games so I could bond with Kendall too.
Mhm.
I always have played video games, but those specific games I didn't really play because I wasn't very good at them. I'm still not very good at them, but whatever. Um, and I will say that I think cooking for like at least 2 days, we can't really have leftovers here. We don't eat them. So I try to only cook for like 1 to 3 days is really our max. Otherwise, they'll just sit in there and go bad. So cooking with enough to last, so I don't have to cook in like the rest of the week. That's been something that has also helped me. So I lied. I do have more. I just couldn't think of any right now. Well, in that moment. Um, and also, oh, that's another thing I was doing. I was in the beginning, maybe not even the beginning, May, June ish. But it started to get really hot outside, so we stopped. But we would drive up to go like random places. We went on like hikes somewhere out
Mhm.
in AJ, which is Apache Junction, if you're not familiar, in Arizona. We've gone up to Flagstaff. We've gone up to, what's another one we went to? Oh, we went to the, I don't even know how to say this word, but Thompson Bryce Arboretum. It's
Ariam,
basically, yes. I never I've read that word so
because
many times.
because it's spelled dumb. It's
Okay.
spelled it's spelled so dumb. Like, don't even feel bad. The word is spelled dumb.
That makes me feel better. We were able to take Gwen to it with us. So that was cool. So we've done when it wasn't hot outside. Now that it's cooling back down, we'll probably start going and doing more things outside again because I really like hiking was one of my things that I also used to do a lot, but during the summer it dies because it's just hell outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Yeah. We do that. So Nova goes on 2 walks a day, right? But Mo takes him out at like 4 a.m. Like, I'm not about that
mm.
life. Also, me and sleep at the time. So that's their solo walk. But in the afternoon, we all do a walk together.
Oh,
And so
nice.
beginning of COVID, it was like stroller and dog, and we all would take a walk outside. But now that she's moving and grooving, she don't even care for the stroller. She just walks outside the door. And we go for a walk. And also lately we've been like doing like one, of course, like we go outside and do our walks because of the sun and everything, but we've been letting Mina put like her feet, like her bare feet in the grass. Because
Aw.
my doula sisters were talking about just like how there are like a lot of benefits to that. I forget, probably should have this information. I forget what they are, but like just like having your feet in the earth and in the grass. So like we've been
Yeah.
doing that a lot too. So that's been cool. But of course here it's getting cooler. So we're in sweaters and hoodies and stuff now some days. So some days we don't go out because it's raining or it's cold. So we'll take like a drive, family drive,
Oh,
everyone get
nice.
in, and then we'll just like go hit like a street and be like, which way we're gonna go, and then just kind of drive straight until we see something. And it's Maryland, so there's a lot of like open land and nice houses and whatever. So that's been nice.
Yeah. You inspired us to go on a drive once. I say once because it was at it was when we had COVID and we literally like weren't going anywhere. We couldn't go into a store and grab something really quickly. I mean, we could have, but it would have probably not been the most responsible.
Mhm.
So we did that one night when we were when I would say was struggling to be sane in the house for those amount of days. Um and it's so funny because I know Phoenix so well because I grew up here and he doesn't. So he would tell me which way to turn and all these things. And he's like, "Wait, are we by the house?" I'm like, yes, we literally just went in a big circle. So that was fun. I was gonna take him up to South Mountain, but then I forget when the gates closed, so we never made it up to the top. But yeah, I think it's
Question, because we were talking about like our families and the folks that we like live with and things. Um, do you ever see your stress or anxiety sort of like impact the folks around you, or like, you know, Kendall, since you guys live together, and like, are you able to like recognize that and like do things about it, or do you not? If that makes sense.
I really don't know. Kendall is the most unreadable person. He probably gets annoyed because I'm like, are you okay? Are you good? Are you, do you need anything? I over exert that. So sometimes I feel like maybe I'm projecting because I can't tell. And he was like, I'm fine. So why are you asking me? And I'm just checking. I'm just checking on you, And so I think that it's definitely seen if I like start an argument, because then it's out of nothing because I was irritated, but really I was anxious, not necessarily irritated with him. So I don't ever think that it rubs off on him. I do notice when he notices. He'll notice
Mhm.
that maybe I'm a little too quiet, or maybe I snapped about him not putting away a dish. I think that's just my pet peeve.
You
I
mentioned
bring
that
it
more
up.
than once, so yeah.
Now it's kind of a joke. It's kind of a joke between us now. Now I don't get irritated about it anymore. I just think it's funny. Because he'll go into the kitchen and put a plate next to the sink. I'm like, just put it in the sink, babe. It's too not even it doesn't change your route. Um, and so yeah, I feel like if anything, I project or he'll notice, but he doesn't ever seem or appear to be taking it on unless he's trying to like not fix it, but help me in that situation. What about you?
Mhm. Um, so yeah, same. Like Mo will notice like when I'm like going through it, or like sometimes he'll even notice it like before me, and he'll ask like, "Are you feeling anxious right now?" or things, or like, and also to that point, like I am just like newly able to, and not like yesterday, but in the last, I want to say like maybe 6 months, like I'm only newly able to verbally express to him like, I'm feeling very anxious right now, like and I need you to do like A, B, and C for me, or like things like that. You know, I was never really able to like put that into words until recently, because like it's because of COVID, like I've been like experiencing kind of like, you know, anxious moments more often. Like now I'm like, okay, look, I need to tell you this so that like you can kind of help me through it, because you're right here, you know. And
Yeah.
so I focused a lot on that lately, but I think he's really good at like noticing things without me saying it as well, because like I wear my anxiety so much. Like I do get like a short temper, or like I'll also like start to do different things and like not finish them. Like I'll start cleaning in the you know, in Mina's room, and then I'll stop and like go start to eat and take a bite, and then like be everywhere. So he'll like kind of like pop in and be like, "You good?"
Mm.
or try to tell me like, you know, you're doing, seems like you're doing a lot right now, like do you want to take a break, do you want to, you know, do you want to rest? So I'm super appreciative of that, just that he is like willing to kind of like keep an eye out on me, but then also like receive me and kind of help when I ask him to.
Yeah. I think that's something that I maybe we realized it together, but I don't always do a good job at it. But just saying what I want,
Mm-hmm.
or need at that moment. I'm so used to fixing everything myself or doing things for myself. And even though we're 2.5 years in, and still I have a habit of I'll just do it. I'll just take care of it. Don't worry about it. Not even necessarily like, sometimes it's petty, but sometimes it's just like, it's okay. I'm already going to do it anyways. I was already planning to do it and you said you would help, but now I want it done now. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to do it. Um, so I think that I think fixing, not fixing, but like I would say squashing our anxiety in the moment and taking the power away from it wasn't ever taught. Like we can just say what we need or want,
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Yeah.
letting it fester. Because I feel like a lot of times anxiety is our ego, not in a malicious way, but our ego saying that we're not in control. The ego isn't in control, it's
Mm.
in the back mind. So you need to find a way to make it in control. And maybe it's not ego, maybe it's something else at that point in time. But I feel like it's that lack of control that, what do we need in that moment to kind of help us feel better about something, and just saying it out loud. I think we, along the way, realize that it's an emotional battle, and like we can only fix it ourselves. But really, like, we can say it out loud, and it's not making it a burden to somebody else. Us saying it out loud doesn't make it somebody else's anxiety. It's not
Mm-hmm.
contagious, you know?
That's real.
Um so I think recently I started saying some stuff out loud, um that maybe I wouldn't have said before. Saying that I just really need you to do this more often, or I don't like when everything's on the ground, and can you please pick up your shoes? I built this thing for us to put our shoes and clothes on. Can you just please do that more often? Instead of me picking a fight over it, being like, wow, you just blatantly disrespected me and my hard work. I built this thing with my bare hands. I could just ask. And it never,
Yeah.
Kendall has always been that person. Like, you could just ask me, but I never, I guess, took advantage of that. Like, I'm not gonna ask you. I'm gonna do it myself first, and then I'll ask you in the middle of a fight. Or I'll blame you and then make you feel bad, so then you fix it next time. But instead I could just avoid all of the fighting and just ask. And I think that also comes in time with, I know I trust is so subjective and there's so many meanings behind trust, but I feel like that's another aspect of trust. Like, I don't want to tell you and be vulnerable. Even though I love you, I trust you all this time, but there are different pockets of myself that maybe I don't trust you with all the way with, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe you'll look at me like a crazy person. Because so often than not, women are told that they're crazy for having these unnatural or whatever thoughts, when really that's just sometimes how our brains work. You know what I mean? It's not because I'm crazy. It's because somewhere along the way, I've developed this tick, and it just continues to happen. And maybe I developed random coping mechanisms that you may not always understand. And it's not your job to understand. But if you want to be support, then here are ways for you to support me. And I think there's so much power in verbalizing it. So kudos to us for learning along the way, and I think every now and then we fall off the bus, and it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, my anxiety is in control. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times than not, I feel like for me personally, more times than not, it's I let my anxiety control my, not even emotions, because anxiety is an emotion, but I let my anxiety control how I'm behaving and how I respond to things. And instead, I probably should practice more often to just, you know, I'm in control. I got this. You can't take over my body because it's my shit. And
Mm.
that's all I'll say about that.
Come on now. I like
I
that.
think I think we're running into the end of our session.
What a great quote to end on. You're so magical.
Sorry, did you answer on your part? I think you did, right? You did it
Mm-hmm.
first? Okay, cool. I didn't want to like end it in the middle of you having something amazing to say.
No,
So,
girl, you wrapped it up.
all right, cool. So, what is our cause for this week, Sid?
Yeah, so just in speaking about, stress and anxiety during COVID, we wanted to leave everyone with some resources in case you feel like you want to talk to someone or get some additional supports during this time. And so we wanted to leave you all with the phone number for the Disaster Distress Helpline. They also have a text line as well. So you can reach the hotline at 1-800-985-5990. They have a Spanish line and a English line. And then you can also text with them, text Talk With Us to 66746. Yep. And then
Dope.
as well, leaving you all with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is 1-800-237-TALK for English, and 1-888-628-9454 for Spanish.
Yeah.
So just leaving those resources with you all, and then just encouraging, if you know someone who, needs some extra support, just, try to be a listening ear if you can, or encourage them to reach out to these hotlines if they want someone, outside of their community, a non-biased person who maybe doesn't know, or who of course doesn't know them, to give them some, like, a response and
Yeah.
some upliftment, and also, encourage you all to seek therapy. Use your insurance. Go to your insurance website or call your insurer and ask, like, what kind of coverage you have, and who you can get services from, and go from there. And there are also a lot of free services popping up, in particularly for Black men and Black women, which I think is super dope. I think Taraji P. Henson just launched like a project or something.
Yeah.
So those are all things y'all can tap into.
Yeah. And I think if you take nothing away from today, I think that one thing I would just like to also emphasize is that anxiety and stress are not taboo, just like suicide and all the other things that we talked about are not taboo. You should be having conversations about it. And if you can't have conversations about it with the people that you're around, then I mean, maybe they're not your strongest support system. I feel like having a strong support system, especially during COVID, is something that I've truly found a value in, and not being, because I can be by myself, you know what I mean? And text people and not have to be physically there. But being able to share those things that are bothering you or stressing you out, or why maybe you're anxious about stuff going back to work, finding those support systems within people that can listen and support you is really something that you should never feel bad about, and you should never feel like you can't talk about. And so we encourage you. We'll leave you with this quote. It is: next time you're stressed, take a step back, inhale, and laugh. Remember who you are and why you're here. You're never given anything in the world that you can't handle. Be strong, be flexible, love yourself, and love others. Always remember, just keep moving forward. Amazing. So we hope that that quote resonates with you and carries you throughout the week. And you have just watched or listened to the Ari and Sid show. And we hope to see you next time.
Bye.
Peace out.